America. Welcome to Angel and the Wiz.
Yes, you know who's who, okay? It's pretty obvious, isn't it? I've been losing weight. Oh, let me tell you. So I went to get my port flushed out, okay, stuff like that. Yeah, checked out with the doctor. I got good numbers from the doctor, for those of you that are following my cancer rehabilitation. And I'm down to 193. And when I hit 190, I have the proper body index to get the...
Money?
Yes!
Okay.
Isn't that great?
That's
yes,
great.
It is great.
3 more pounds.
Yeah, just 3 more pounds, and I haven't been sweating. I've been just a little bit.
And then you gotta go lower than that, though.
Well, I want to because I want it to look okay on the show. I don't want to look like, you know, like a nudge or something like that. Okay, well, let me see. Okay, let's just say. I think we're okay time-wise. We should have, if we have to. You know, it does the little.
Light blink,
oh, that's right. Very good. I forgot what it was. Okay, so now, anything for those of you that were with us last week, we thanked a bunch of people, and we did the cabinet for the campaign.
We definitely welcome any opinions you have.
Yes,
or
please.
Or suggestions
yes.
on that, because it is kind of open for interpretation.
It is. Not only is it open for interpretation, the fact of the matter is you're never going to get an opportunity to help choose a cabinet. You're never going to.
Public vote.
This is the only chance you're ever going to have to put your recommendations out there, and we will honor and look at and discuss any recommendations that we get.
Isn't the vice president the head of the House of Representatives?
Close. The vice president is the president pro tem of the Senate.
I was close, yeah.
Listen, you had one of them.
One of them.
It's okay. It's totally okay. Listen, at
Senate.
least you didn't say I like him because his hair was nice. Okay, good. Okay.
So we need to have somebody for VP that's going to reign in the Senate.
Yeah. Listen, didn't I send you that Bill Whittle video?
No.
You should watch that. I'm gonna tell you what.
I don't really watch stuff.
Anything that I send you, I know it's okay. I understand. You should watch it. I think you would be impressed with it.
That makes me a great campaign manager.
That's right.
I could see people coming up. Well, what about that time when he would be like, I don't know, I don't watch this stuff.
Right,
like, I'm sorry.
I can't deal with
whatever.
it. But in any event.
I can tell you his opinion on women's issues.
Right.
Because it's mine.
But in any event, he really is good in the stuff that and you know what I liked about him? He was honest. He says, you know why the Republicans didn't get elected this time? Because they're the only people that won't tell people why they believe what they believe. He says they go out and they talk about this, and one of the points that he made was that he said when they asked Romney about having money in the Cayman Islands and everything, that's not the question. The question is why can't he put his money here? And he had the answer, okay? And that's the kind of thing that's the kind of stuff he goes. I mean, he's really, really, really good, because I think one of my points is we want to believe in education, not legislation. If we believe in something, we want to educate the people why they should do it. We don't need to pass a law. Hey, isn't it common sense that if you're driving a 2,000-pound car, you may want to wear a safety belt? Why do we need a law? Why don't we just take the time to educate the people for the things that we believe in?
I kind of feel that way about the whole gun stuff that they're talking about now. The ban on assault weapons and stuff. And I've heard kind of both sides of the story. And then someone said that the NRA believes that everyone, no matter what, has a right to bear arms.
That's an oversimplification that people use to imply that they don't care if you're crazy if you have a gun. That's not where they stand.
Well, that's what it was.
I am an NRA member.
And then there was the other guy that said during the Sandy Hook town hall.
Right.
The sound clip was the NRA believes that the Second Amendment is a bigger priority over the life of my son. Is something like that.
Yeah, but that's not. Then that clip, the guy that the NBC made that clip with the people reacting, and they cut off what he said first, which was he asked for opinions. He said, "Tell me what you think," and then these people answered back, and they played it to make it look like he was just talking, and they were trying to talk over him. No, the NRA is for gun safety. They don't think people that shouldn't have guns. But the point that they're trying to make, and this is very, very important because nobody wants to talk about it. The Second Amendment was put into the Constitution after we had just won the revolution against people that wanted to take our weapons. Something nobody talks about. When you hear that story of Paul Revere and where his ride, and one if by land and two if by sea, but what they don't tell you was what that was about, was the British were coming to seize our weapons so we couldn't fight against them. That's what he was going to tell people. Okay, and the two lights meant instead of driving around this way, they were going to go across the sea. It wasn't really sea. In those days in Boston, it was just like a bay, and it's all been filled in. And so what it was really about was that the Redcoats were coming to take our weapons. The reason there's a Second Amendment is because we want to protect ourselves from the government. Okay? And they don't like to talk about that because they don't want us to be protected from the government. Do you know that Dianne Feinstein came out with an assault weapons ban that had all kinds of weapons and all kinds of ammunition, and government employees were exempt?
Well, let me say this.
I don't trust them now.
About the whole, gun thing. Is I feel that the laws were effective. And I know I said this right after the Sandy Hook tragedy happened.
Right.
Is that boy, that man, that young man, that kid that created, that did that horrible massacre.
Right.
The guns were not registered to him.
Right.
He never was able to get them, and I felt like the laws worked. There are some things that, like, okay, maybe we should have a national, why are we destroying background checks? We shouldn't be destroying the background checks. If I have to keep a piece of paper for like 7 years in case the IRS audits me, then you should be able to keep a background check.
Well, I don't know anything about background checks being destroyed.
There's a background check thing, and
all
there
I
was
know,
another thing about creating a database, and there's some
the reason they don't want that is because if you have a government that has decided that it's taking over, they just pop into that database and they show up at your house and they take your guns. That's why they don't want that.
I don't think that I don't think that the people in the United States would ever allow it to get that far. That is extremism.
Well,
you know what I mean?
But the point
so I don't think it'll. So I think that the people who are thinking like that are so irrational that.
But you've got to keep something in mind. The law. Have you ever met a criminal that cared about the law?
No.
Okay. Do you ever see a criminal that says, "Oh, gee, I can't have this"?
Right. No,
okay.
But that's the other.
So what does that
point
mean?
I've heard people make.
That means that the laws are for honest people. Laws are for good people. Laws are for people that follow the law. And the people that go around and kill people don't follow the law. So who are we kidding? When we're talking about passing law, do you know we had an assault weapons ban for 10 years that did nothing? It had zero impact. That kid, most every time you look at somebody that does this and they use a gun under this kind of situation, they're not a licensed gun holder. They're somebody that stole the gun or got the gun from somebody else. And those people are always going to do that because they can't get them legally.
We have my boyfriend's here in the studio, and he looks like he wants to say something. So if you want to say something, you have to come on camera.
Hey, how come he can't get over here? That's okay.
Yeah, okay. People who want to kill people are going to kill them whether they have a gun or not.
That's right. They use a bow and arrow.
Timothy McVeigh
blew
up people using bombs. That was the compounds of the bomb was bought at a grocery store.
Sure.
He was able to buy all that stuff, assemble it, put it in a van, and blow up a building filled with children.
Right.
He did more damage than he could have done if he had strapped himself
with lots of guns, right? So, and the point is well made. If you couldn't hear him completely, the point that he's making is, if people want to kill people, they find a way. That's the bottom line, and they do. Okay, and So that's
so anyway, the guns weren't registered to this child. Now, I would be looking at the mother saying, why did the mother have as many as she did?
Right.
But there are collectors, whatever. Why, I would look at it, why would the mother, knowing that she has an unstable child, have all of these weapons in her
unsecured
house?
Way?
Yeah. Right. He's a teenager. I will tell my parents could have locked...
Very unstable time.
But my parents could have locked whatever they locked, and if I really wanted to get into it, I would have found a way to get into it.
That's what I
mean.
So
that's, you have to be realistic.
You're dealing with irrational people.
Why were they in that? If she needed to feel she needed to protect herself, a small handgun should have sufficed against her son.
Right.
You know, not the assault. If she wanted to have those other weapons,
Right.
get a locker, gun
gun locker.
storage somewhere else. You know.
And I'm also.
So I feel that the focus. I feel that they're. I feel bad for the victims of Sandy Hook because
you have to feel bad for them.
Well, I feel bad for the tragedy, but now it's this. I feel empathy because they have this. Both political parties are using the tragedy to fuel a conversation that is heading in the wrong direction. You know, it's not about
Nothing new there.
Yeah, and I just feel bad. I just feel really bad about it.
Hey, so listen.
Okay.
Now,
My apologies.
no, why should you
Okay.
apologize? You do a good. I like when you wear your hair down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so listen now, Thomas. Here we go. Educational time, kiddies. For
Do I
those
get
of
to
you who
see-
don't know who Thomas Jefferson
Go back to
was,
school.
right? Thomas Jefferson. They don't teach this stuff
You
in
be
school.
quiet now.
Thomas Jefferson was one of the founding fathers. We're going to talk about him in a second, and then we're going to read you some of his quotes. Now, shall I start?
Yeah.
I'll start with his background, okay? Thomas Jefferson was a very remarkable man who started learning very early in life and never stopped. At 5, he began studying under his cousin's tutor. At 9, he studied Latin, Greek, and French. Sprite cat. At 14, he studied classical literature and additional languages. At 16, he entered the College of William and Mary. At 19, he studied law for 5 years, starting under George White. I don't know who George White it was, I'm sorry. At 23, he started his own law practice. At 25, he was elected to the Virginia House of Burgesses, which was like a state,
A state congress
right.
of some sort.
Right. At 31, he wrote the widely circulated Summary View of the Rights of British America and retired from his law practice. Because you want to keep in mind, at this time before the Revolution, they were primarily concerned with the rights of Englishmen, because they were Englishmen, okay? At 32, he was a delegate to the Second Continental Congress. At 33, he wrote the Declaration of Independence.
I feel really unaccomplished right now.
But this
Damn.
is okay. At 36, he was elected the second governor of Virginia, succeeding Patrick Henry. Give me liberty or give me death. At 40, he served in Congress, the American Congress, for 2 years. At 41, he was the American minister to France and negotiated commercial treaties with European nations along with Ben Franklin and John Adams. At 46, he served as the first Secretary of State under George Washington. At 53, he served as Vice President and was elected President of the American Philosophical Society. At 55, drafted the Kentucky Resolutions and became the active head of the Republican Party. At 57, this was the old Republican Party. At 57, he was elected the third President of the United States.
At age 60, he obtained the Louisiana Purchase, which doubled the nation's size. At 61, he was elected to a second term as president. At 65, he retired to Monticello.
Right.
At 80, he helped President Monroe shape the Monroe Doctrine. At 81, he almost single-handedly created the University of Virginia and served as its first president. And at 83, he died on the 50th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, along with John Adams.
Who also died the same day. Now,
That's kind of odd.
okay.
Maybe
Now,
they were poisoned.
okay. No, I think that 83 in those days. That's a pretty good number. Now, you want to do this,
Continue?
Pete, and then I want to
Okay.
point out something.
Thomas Jefferson knew, because he himself studied the previous failed attempts at government, he understood actual history, the nature of God, his laws, and the nature of man. John F. Kennedy held a dinner in the White House for a group of the brightest minds in the nation at the time, and he made this statement. This is perhaps the assembly of the most intelligence ever to gather at one time in the White House, with the exception of when Thomas Jefferson
Dined alone.
Wow.
What a thought.
He was smart.
Okay, now the reason I wanted to read all this as background is because we're going to give you some of his quotes. And there's a lot to gain from these quotes. You want to take turns? You want to start?
Okay, I'll start with the first one.
Okay.
When we get piled upon one another in large cities, as in Europe, we shall become as corrupt as Europe.
Okay. The democracy will cease to exist when you take away from those who are willing to work and give to those who would not.
Do you think that applies today? Do you
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Because we've got somebody in office now who believes in sharing the wealth. And let me tell you, we've talked about this before, but the reason there was a Thanksgiving was because when they set up the original Mayflower Compact, it was a socialism organization. That is, everybody got a piece of the same piece of land, everybody was supposed to farm the land, and we all put everything in together and we all shared it. And they had disaster. And the reason they had disaster was because the people that worked hard and created everything, and the people that didn't work hard got the same amount as them. And after a while they said, chuck this. Why should I work hard if everybody just gets the same thing as me? We believe in equal opportunity, not equal outcome. So what did they do? They got together. Doesn't it make sense? They got together and they changed the law. They made each person's land their own private property, and if they developed, if they harvested more corn than they needed, they could sell what they got and keep the benefit. Okay?
Which one of the sorry.
And by doing that, they ended up with so much stuff, they could invite the Indians over and have a Thanksgiving, because all of a sudden, for the first time, they had more than they knew what to do with. Why? Because the people that did the work benefited from the work, so they worked harder. So as soon as I start taking from you to give to this guy over here, he loses interest. Why is one of my points that anybody that gets something from the government has to do something for it based on their ability? It could be the simplest thing.
Which one of those cabinets or is in charge? Secretaries in charge of like welfare and stamps.
I don't know. I don't know if that's housing and urban development, or I just don't know.
Because
we're
going to start drug testing. You got to get drug tested if you want your little debit card for your food stamps or whatever.
You got to be able to pass your urine.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. It is incumbent on every generation to pay its own debts as it goes, a principle which, if acted on, would save 1/2 the wars of the world.
Okay. Get this one. I predict future happiness for Americans if they can prevent the government from wasting the labors of people under the pretense of taking care of them. Now I realize that he's spoken in his terms. You know what I mean? You want me to break it into today's English?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't get it.
Okay. Well, what he's saying is
I teach math. Sorry, y'all.
He believed that Americans would be happy if they can prevent the government from taking from them. In other words, we want to take care of you, so we're going to take this from you. You can't spend your own money.
No. Okay. My reading of history convinces me that most bad government results from too much government.
Indeed. No free man shall ever be debarred from the use of arms. And of course, remember, these guys just fought a war with people that were trying to take their guns. And if they had allowed them to take their guns, there wouldn't have been any revolution.
That's true.
Because they would. You know what the Kathleen Sebelius, and she's the secretary that's involved that you're looking for, but I don't know what she's head of. She said something, and I shouldn't say that. I'm not sure whether it was the director, the lady that does Homeland Security, whatever. They made a video about what to do if somebody comes in with a gun, and they show hiding under the desk, or get a scissor. Let me tell you something. Remember that? I don't know if you remember the line from The Untouchables, but you know what I mean? Bringing a knife to a gunfight, okay?
Yeah, no.
Grabbing a scissor to protect yourself from a guy with a gun is stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, next.
Okay. The strongest reason for the people to retain the right to keep and bear arms is, as a last resort, to protect themselves against tyranny and government.
Yes, absolutely.
That makes sense at the time.
And now as well. I believe as well.
Maybe.
Don't you realize why people?
But like I said, I don't think that the government is ever going to try and go door to door and be like, "Give me all your guns." I don't think that we'll ever get to that point because
if you don't stop it now, they'll be in a position to do it. Okay, one of the reasons other countries have never come and invaded this country, two reasons. First one was we had the oceans. Okay, the world was, though they were big enough at one time to prevent us. But the greatest illustration of that was what Admiral Yokohama said when they wanted him to bomb Pearl Harbor, which he did. He says, "I'm afraid that the Japanese government does not understand that if you're going to fight the United States, you're not just going to bomb them in Pearl Harbor. You're going to have the terms of surrender signed in Washington. You're going to have to fight your way across that whole country. Okay, that's what we're talking about. That's one of the three things that you got to keep in mind. That one of the first things Hitler did was take the guns.
You know, it very much annoys me when people are saying that, like, and I don't know where they're getting these
Right.
people to interview, but they're like, Hitler took the guns and blah blah blah, and then they're comparing Obama to Hitler and that he's gonna take, like, I mean,
I don't want to
even-
give them the temptation.
Even you have to think that some of that is a little, you know, as much
But
as
it's
you
still true.
As much as you dislike Obama, he's not taking the
Forget
guns
it. I don't
away,
care
and
who-
you can't compare him to Hitler. You shouldn't compare anybody to
No,
Hitler.
I'm not
'cause he was
comparing him to
horrible.
Hitler. I'm just saying that one of the first things Hitler did, who was a tyrant, was take the guns from the people.
And his country was like the size of Ohio.
But that's not the point. The point is, if you have an unarmed populace, they are yours.
Our country's too big. You would never get.
You would
an
think so.
unarmed
Well, I don't
populace.
think you're ever going to get the guns out of Texas. You don't have to worry about that.
Right.
Texas will
If
still be
anything-
standing.
If anything, Texas will save our ass.
Yeah,
So
at the very least.
okay, it's your.
Oh, those are mine. There was actually, if you go to Walt Disney World, they have in Liberty Square the Sons of Liberty tree. There was a Liberty tree. I don't know where it was. It was in Philadelphia, Boston. I'm not sure. The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. Now, we're at a time where we hope that won't happen. We don't want to see that happen because it would be a horrible thing. That's why we lost the most people in the Civil War, because both sides were us.
To compel a man to subsidize with his taxes the propagation of ideas which he disbelieves and abhors is sinful and tyrannical.
Right, and that's a perfect
It's a
example.
lot. I'd have to read that like 5 or 6 times.
Okay, what this says is, okay, here's the perfect example. That's why I like that Secretary of Labor thing that you said. This is exactly what happens when the unions take your dues and give it to people that you do not support.
I will tell
That
you
is
this.
exactly
The
what this
only
is.
I no longer belong to a union because I teach for a private school and they
Okay.
don't have unions. But when I was in a public school, I belonged to a union, the teachers union, and I only did that because
You had to.
well, no, it's not required
Okay.
here. In other states, it's required, but I only did that because if you get the legal support.
Right.
Because at any time, one of those students could come in and can go to the principal and say, this teacher did this.
Right, I got you.
And then all I have to do is call my union representative
And they'll
say,
come in and help
then
you out.
it's done. Like,
Okay.
and all, you know, and I'm like paying however much I have to pay
Right.
a month as
Right.
as
But you don't want
lar-
your...
you know, I wish I could have that money, but
Right.
I'd rather have that safety net.
Okay, but you don't want that money being used to support a guy like Alan Grayson who calls everybody Hitler. That's what I mean.
Yeah, you're right. That's true. But
And they do. And see, the other problem is, ever since we've had the ability for unions to work in the public sector,
2 minutes.
we have had people who are being supported by the unions negotiating the contracts.
And that's
that's
true.
That's why I put that
That's
thing in.
true, yeah.
If we ever, this
But that's
is
why
this.
I like have the Secretary of Labor. Because Secretary of Labor, we're going to rein in all those unions.
That's right,
You
and
wanna, if you want to do a dealing with somebody in Congress or whatever,
You
have
can't give them money.
You have to get approval and register or whatever, and talk to the Secretary of Labor first.
Okay, good. Like that.
We'll figure it out.
Okay, here. This is something
Smart.
that Thomas Jefferson said in 1802. I don't know if it needs to be brought up to date. I believe that banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberty than standing armies.
That's true.
If the American people ever allow private banks to control the issue of their currency, first by inflation, then by deflation, the banks and corporations that will grow up around the banks will deprive the people of all property until their children wake up homeless on the continent their fathers conquered. And basically what
It's like taking the economic downturn we had and putting it in 3 sentences.
Yeah, because so anyway, listen, I wanted to what do we got?
Magnum.
Yeah, the Magnum XL is coming. Okay, now I want you to watch this ride. I got about 30 seconds to explain this to you. The Magnum XL is taller than the space shuttle. Okay, we were going ghosting one night at the Cedar Point Park. The park was closed. All the lights were off. And they said, "You want to go on the roller coasters?" Because they do it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So we said, "Sure." So we hopped in a roller coaster. We went to and when we got to the very, very top, this is a coaster. When you see it, it's just a coaster on a metal straight track. Okay, there's nothing on either side. And we got to the top, and they forgot that you needed somebody at the bottom to push a release, and we were stuck at the top, as close to God as you could get on the earth. And I want you to know that once that happens to you, you have a different appreciation for life.
Oh, nice.
My best to you, baby.
Thank you. Do something good every day, America, and volunteer at your local animal shelter.
That's right. And send us your comments, etc., etc.